Hey, everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew here, and of course, I'm joined by Mr. Paul Thurrott. How you doing, Paul?
Pretty good.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
It is Christmas time here in Bayside, Queens.
You wouldn't know it if you stepped outside.
You would have no idea because it is literally like September.
Degrees.
Yeah, it's 60 degrees today.
It's a nice Seattle spring day.
Yeah. As some would say, it's very it's like bizarrely humid, very strangely humid.
Yeah, not normal for December.
Well, tomorrow it's going to be, I think, Thursday, or is it Christmas Eve or Christmas? It's going to be 72 here in New York.
Yeah, probably Christmas Eve unless it's changed. But
yeah.
Oh
boy.
You know what? I'll take it.
Over the snow?
Oh,
so I have a question for you. You work from home like me. Does it really bother you when it snows?
Yeah, I have to shovel it.
So what? You go out there. You don't have a snowblower?
Listen, I'm not going to give up working from. I do now, but no, it's worse in some ways. I mean, if I worked in an office, I could be like, I can't get into work today. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I can't work.
The trains are down or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's good and bad. Working from home is good and bad in all ways. But yeah, it's on me.
It's El Nino, Paul. El Nino has struck again. Every time I hear El Nino, I think of the Farley bit from SNL, where he was El Nino and he was like a pro wrestler, like a luchador, and we just screamed that he's El Nino. I always think of that, and I brought that reference up to somebody the other day that was telling me this, and then she looked at me like I was crazy, and I realized she's 22 and she has no clue what any of this is.
Why would anyone young ever know what SNL was?
Yeah, she doesn't know what SNL was. She doesn't know, she knows what SNL is. She doesn't know Farley. She doesn't know what El Nino really is.
Sure.
I was like, oh, to be 22 again.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we are going to talk about something today, and it is not El Nino. It is our it sucked list. It's the worst of 2015.
The suck list?
Yeah, all these things just totally sucked.
That's a little harsh, but yeah, they all suck.
They had a bad year. Let's just say it that way. These brands, companies, products, in our opinion, were not as either as hyped, as positive as people initially thought they would be. They probably had a bad year. Things changed. So this is our worst of 2015 in technology list. Listen, I'm sure we're missing some stuff. I'm sure a lot of you people will not agree with some of the stuff on here, but that's the great part of this, that we could all have an opinion and talk about things that we dislike.
Right.
I purposely left stuff. It's for me, the most interesting part is looking at Paul's list and looking at my list.
Mm-hmm.
And I purposely left some of the stuff out. And then there are things on here that Paul is so harsh on. I was like, I didn't expect that from Paul. I agree with that, but I didn't think he would say that about it. It's pretty cool. Yeah. So I left some stuff out, and you picked up on it, but we'll get to it, actually.
Okay.
We'll get to it. We'll talk about what I have on my list as one of my biggest, for me personally, I was deeply affected by this, and that's RadioShack going bankrupt. RadioShack's bankruptcy.
This is gonna make no one's list.
No,
except for
no. This is on nobody's list, guys. I'm not saying this is the worst story of the year. People saw this coming many years ago. Probably from the day that they stopped selling it handy, people knew it was over for them. But my local Radio Shack was still like that old school Radio Shack where you could literally go and get BNC connectors. You could buy the female to female or male to male BNC connectors. Where else would I order that other than Amazon? They still had all those crazy adapters that you would not find anywhere else. Everything. They had the most odd, bizarre connectors, and it did well. You go and open the drawer like the old days and try to find the things that you needed. I can't tell you how many times I've thought to myself, where the hell do I go to buy this now? If I needed it last minute. I needed an optical cable, Paul. Optical audio cable.
Right.
Because I bought the sound bar, and the one that they provide you, the one that Vizio provides you, is literally like 3 feet long, or like 2 feet long. Like you can't run it anywhere, unless it's like directly going to the TV.
Right.
Like you can't like do like good cable management. So I was like, oh, I'll go to Radio Shack. Oh crap, I can't do that. It doesn't exist. So I don't know. Was it like that for you? Like when was the last time you walked into a Radio Shack?
I should have added this to the list, actually. It's because it's not really just Radio Shack. It's any store.
When was the last time you went to any store?
And it's not just because, I do hate to shop in general. I have a very low threshold for shopping, no matter what it is. But the truth is, there were shopping experiences that I used to really enjoy on a regular basis. Bookstores, Best Buy, or the Best Buy equivalent back in the day. I grew up in New England, and so we had Lechmere's, for 30 years there or whatever.
Yeah.
Which was kind of the prototypical Best Buy. I can't stand these stores anymore, and I can't stand stores in general, but, even the stores that I liked because they stocked the things that I cared about have become over time just completely uninteresting to me.
Yeah.
And I'm a little nervous about that because I don't know if it's it's like the dark side of the Amazon thing I think we were talking about a few weeks back, where you become so accustomed to how easy it is to do things electronically that you stop doing things out in the real world to such a degree that you're just kind of checking out.
People look at Walmart as the killer of small businesses, right? Walmart is killing everybody, but I think the Amazon effect is way more dangerous because you don't ever have to leave. But the positive thing on Amazon is that you could become a seller and you could sell items on Amazon. So there is some last ditch, hope for the small business owner. Radio Shack in my neighborhood was like a small business. The same people worked there for like 10 years. It was like,
well, Radio Shacks were generally very small, right? There were no gigantic Radio Shack superstores. In fact, I think Radio Shack started Incredible Universe. Did they do that? I think it was them for that purpose. If not, it was something like Incredible Universe. But Radio Shacks, by and large, were always a little small, and they look like mom and pop things. Just by virtue of the fact that they had rows and rows of buckets with little circuits and stuff in them. I mean, it sort of was like it was almost like a ham radio store or like a local hardware store back in the day where you could have buckets with different sized screws and stuff. I mean, there was something very old fashioned about it, despite the fact that they were kind of technology.
I would walk in there sometimes and I'd be shocked at the stuff that I would see. Like I would see, actually someone in the chat room just said something interesting. They said all Radio Shacks had the same smell. It's like cardboard and just toxic.
It's like the smell of breadboards and copper wiring.
Yeah. Plastic.
Like the plastic tape smell off of a realistic cassette tape.
Yeah. But I was just walking by, like a couple of years ago. I was like, oh, I'm curious if they have a component component video distribution amp. Like, what are the odds that they're going to have this? I walk up there. I asked the guy, I'm like, do you guys have a distribution amp for component video? And he's like, yeah, we do, right in the back. It was like $9. I was like, who? Why would you have? I still saved it. Look, I'm going to show you this thing. I bought it. This was one of the first things I ever bought for the show. It's a 4-way distribution amp, so I was able to split the video up, Like, I paid $9 for this thing. The same one was on Amazon, like, off-label, like $59.
Right.
So, like, it's stuff like that. Like, that'll never happen again, So, sure. I miss Radio Shack. That is my, like, worst stuff, because I would go in there last minute constantly running in there. It was like my they had like a running tab. They're like, oh, it's Andrew, don't worry about it. Get it to me next time.
Yeah. Well, I think Radio Shack falls into that broader category we were kind of talking about. It's not just Radio Shack. It's everything. It's everything local. It's everything small. For example, this morning I just had breakfast with a friend who lives out of town. He happened to be in for a very short period of time. So I got up really early. I went down to this place called the 50s Diner that's in Dedham. The 50s Diner is less than 25 years old. So it's not like it goes back to the 1980s or the 1950s or something. But in the context of what's happened in the town that I live in, it now qualifies as literally the only remaining joint where you can get breakfast, like
a diner
the
joint,
little, yes, like the little mom and pop breakfast places that used to be all over the place in Dedham. They're all gone.
So what do you have for breakfast? Like what kind of?
No, look, what I have is 2 eggs any style with some form of meat and then some type of bread.
Yeah.
And then there is this literal laundry list of things you have to answer. How do you want the eggs? What kind of meat do you want? Yeah. Do you want a side of this? What kind of bread do you want? Do you want butter in the bread? Do you want hash browns? Do you want, it's like this whole thing. Yeah. It's like it's the simplest breakfast in the world, but it's like, and you have to kind of, the waitress there is not interested in you. You can't think about it. You have to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
If you don't know what you're doing, she'll just come back.
Yeah.
And it's those types of places to me are national treasures. They're part of what makes this country. And in my town, at least, they're gone. This is the only one.
So
we have an IHOP somewhere in Dedham, which is terrible.
So that's interesting. I was just having this discussion literally an hour ago with somebody about I went to go visit my mother. She was living outside of Houston last year, and I went to go visit her. And almost every single restaurant that we went to was some sort of chain, some sort of like mega whatever. It was just gigantic. They were all huge. So I was thinking, and I brought this up to someone. They go, "Yeah, that's how it is here. Like, you want to go to eat, you're going to like a Baja whatever, but like you realize that there's like 50 of them across the Midwest or whatever. Like in my neighborhood, the diner's up the block. Jackson Hall Diner's been there for 25 years. It's like an old school diner. We don't have major chains around me, and the ones that we don't do business. They're shutting down the Burger Kings. They're shutting down the Wendy's by me.
Well, that's okay.
That's fine. Yeah.
But I recall there were a couple places when I drove cross country this past spring. My dad and I stopped in that were like this kind of place, but out in one case, rural Colorado or whatever. And you go to these places and it's like, it's so awesome that these places are here.
Yeah. Listen, next time you're in New York, because everybody's now telling me it's ridiculous that you guys have done a show in the Microsoft store. We've drank till all hours of the night. I was drinking till 1 o'clock in the morning with Mary Jo Foley last week.
Sure.
We were drinking. He's like, and everyone's like, I don't understand.
She's going to be the death of all of us.
Yeah. I don't understand why Paul has not come to Bayside to do a show. So next time you're here,
that's worked out the way
we'll figure it out. We'll figure out something, and we'll do a show from here, and you got to see my little small town. I think you're like, wow, this is actually New York. Like weird.
Okay.
I'm in the Twilight Zone. That's what Mary Jo Foley said. She's in the Twilight Zone. But yeah, so, the small retailers are going, and Amazon is killing everybody. And you know what? Amazon literal same-day shipping is the most dangerous thing out there. Paul, why don't you go into something? We spoke long enough about RadioShack. Too long. 18 minutes of RadioShack.
Right,
talk.
Which is going to confuse a lot of people because this was supposed to be about tech.
Yeah.
So for me, it's funny because this really coincides with a lot of the changes that occurred for me with the website this year when I moved from the Super Safe for Windows to Thurrott.com in January. And the first big thing that I wrote about that was just a big deal for the site that, got a lot of traffic and lots of comments and so forth is actually the thing that I think is the defining issue for this year from a technological standpoint. And that is crapware on PCs. And the reason that it's the biggest and most terrible thing that's happened this year is obviously not because it's new. Crapware has been around since, PCs have been around almost, or at least since, 20 plus years or whatever. But there's been one big change this year with crapware. And that's that it's moved from being annoying and being something that slows down your computer, being something that makes your computer more unreliable and all that kind of stuff we already know about crapware. And it has turned into a security risk. All of the biggest computer makers in the world this year shipped crapware on their computers that completely usurped the security model of Windows, allowing hackers to break into those systems, turn them into zombie PCs or steal personal information or whatever, all of them. And that is astonishing to me. So back in January, I wrote what some people sadly thought was sort of a clickbait headline, but it was, sorry, Satya, but no one is going to love Windows 10 or Windows until you fix this problem. And I was talking about crapware, that the primary way that Windows is distributed to end users is through PC makers. And PC makers stand in the chain between users and the people that make Windows, and they add crap to it. They literally ruin the experience before you get Windows. And at the time, what I had said was, there's a solution to this problem. It is to basically require your PC Maker partners to deliver signature PC images to users and not let them put the crapware on there. Obviously, they have not listened to that advice, but it's been interesting as the years gone on, again and again and again. Obviously, Superfish was first, but most recently we saw that Dell thing with the certificate issue. Same kind of thing. A company acting, not maliciously, but just enacting stupidly, has opened up people's computers to attack, and that's unacceptable. I mean, it's too bad.
The good news is with Windows, you could always remove the crapware. Most people don't, unfortunately, because they're not even aware that it's there, or they can, remove it.
Here's the thing. So, just coincidentally, last week, and these are true coincidences, but just last week I did that focus group. That focus group was for Microsoft. It was for the Signature PC group. And as it turns out, you could take your computer to Best Buy and you could have them remove it. You could do it yourself. And the truth is that thing will never run as efficiently as if it was never there in the first place, because a lot of that crapware lives stuff behind. There's still processes running. It's still taking up resources. They have amazing examples of computers that they just kind of sit in a corner and they let them run and do a time-lapse video. And over time, pop up. And in some cases, the computer stops working. It literally comes crashing to its knees and won't boot anymore.
Wow, that's so scary.
It is fair to say that if you buy a new computer, you buy it from Best Buy, you buy it from the PC maker themselves or whatever. You can bring it home. You can install Windows Fresh on it using that image you can download from Microsoft or Windows.com. And that's not bad. That's not so horrible. You can hopefully get the right drivers going and all that kind of stuff, although you'll never really have that perfectly curated experience that, frankly, Microsoft and the PC makers do want you to have. You could just buy it from Lenovo or Dell or HP or any of the other companies. And like you said, you could remove the crapware and kind of hope for the best that you got somewhere, But these things are not, they just don't achieve the same short and long-term effects of just never having had the crapware on.
No, you're absolutely right.
That's unfortunate.
Every year when a family member around, the holidays, people buy new computers. And more and more of my family has kind of gone over to the Mac side. But the ones that are still buying PCs, they're not spending $1,500 on a PC. They're buying $500, $400, $600, $700, $800. And no matter what they're buying, the thing is, the first thing I do, I go, do you mind if I just take a look at this and just see what's going on?
Yeah.
I go into Task Manager. I look at the processes run, 128 processes. And it's like Lenovo update dot whatever. And then it's Lenovo security dot whatever. And it's like all this nonsense that's just running in the back.
Yep.
Just running in the back.
On that note, this PC issue, this crapware issue, like the RadioShack thing we talked about, actually plays into a much broader issue. And this is the same kind of category you get into with things like net neutrality, and which we used to get to in cars with like safety features like airbags, where if you were paying a lot of money, you didn't have to worry about this stuff. Yeah. And it creates this divide between the haves and the have-nots, where the people can afford to spend lots of money, have a much better experience, and the people who can't, don't. And it really stinks on the PC side because it's not just Macs, right? You could spend $1,500 or more on a PC. Typically, when you do that, if you get a high-end HP, get like a ThinkPad or whatever, you're actually not getting a lot of crapware. Like those companies actually do a pretty good job on their professional and expensive machines, the gaming type machines or whatever, of not putting crapware on there. And so this is something like I could afford to buy an expensive computer if I wanted to, and that's nice for me. We often talk about how we ride around in our gold chariots, but for the vast majority of the population, not just in this country, but everywhere in the world, I really think that it sucks that these people can't afford anything nice and they get a substandard experience on a computer because that PC maker is screwing them over with crapware simply because they can only afford to pay $100, $300, $600, whatever it is, $850, however high it goes before the crapware goes away. It's just unfair. And from sort of a moral perspective.
There you go. You talking about crapware? Look what just popped up.
Nice.
It literally just popped up and said critical update.
Yeah.
It's amazing, right?
That's terrible.
So
it's really terrible.
But here's the thing.
This topic really upsets me.
It does upset me. And it upsets me more on the Android side.
Yeah, you see it on Android too, right?
It's gotten a little better in 2015, but guys, it's still horrible. On my desktop right here, I have an app called Debloater. I have to do this whole rigmarole to debloat this Samsung phone because guess what? It's not a whatever Google Pure experience.
So
it's
Debloater
the Samsung
is like decrapifier, right? In other words, it takes the apps that you could only hide, and by the way, there's a little
or stop running. You could stop running them,
but now you can actually stop.
I could actually remove it, uninstall them,
and remove them. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's terrible that you have to do it, but it's nice that you can't do it.
But there's a whole like song and dance. Like it's not just plugging it into your computer and doing it. It's like you got to do stuff to get this to happen. Sure. I think it's on the phone side when these exploits start happening more and more, and I'm shocked that we're not seeing more of this happen. On the phone side, it's totally dangerous. On the PC side, yes, it's dangerous. But what's going to happen when this starts happening on the phone, where all your information is on there?
I know.
Like more and more of these exploits, more and more of these, crapware that they're putting on here, or bloatware, whatever you want to call them. There's vulnerabilities in these applications, and now you're screwed.
Right.
Or people just don't care, like you and I. The first thing I do is remove it. I mean, it's an easy task, but you're right. Things linger, things stay. It happens.
It's not about caring, right? You're educated enough about this topic to know that you want your phone to be a certain way. You don't want this stuff on there that you don't want. And good for you. There's no reason for things to be taking up disk space, to be taking up resources that are running automatically that you're never going to use and don't want, and only run by mistake because they're there. And what is that? But it's really the economic thing is the same as the education thing, and often it's the same people. The people who don't know any better, who might assume, well, this has to be there because, why would they put that? These people, they're just victims. They're being victimized in a completely different way on the same device. I hate that. You shouldn't have to make computer or phone experts out of people. The company that they buy this stuff from should not be screwing them over. They should be doing the best thing they can do for those people.
How much more money is a signature series?
$0.
Like it's not like that whole concept.
No, this is not a money-making scheme. This is literally Microsoft who gets blamed for everything that goes wrong on a PC, saying, look, we're not trying to make money here, more money. You're going to buy a computer. Instead of buying it at Dell.com or instead of buying it at BestBuy.com or whatever, buy it from Microsoft.com. And when you do, you're going to get the exact same computer, but it has the known good, clean, no crapware signature image on it. It's not $5, it's not $50, it's the same price.
It's amazing to me.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I know. They're not a charity. I don't mean to say it's altruistic per se, but
so is the
right
notion
thing.
that is the idea that HP is able to subsidize the cost of this laptop by putting all this crap on there? Is that not?
Yeah, so
is that true, or is Microsoft just eating the cost of this?
Microsoft has done what they can do with regards to the cost of Windows. The cost of Windows to PC makers has gone down drastically over the years. In many cases, it's free, right, on low-end devices in particular. There's a combination of factors. These things are never particularly simple. I often point to the netbook as part of the how low can they go trend that has maybe kind of imploded the PC market from within. It's created a situation where people don't expect to pay a lot for PCs. And so they're not really kind of willing to pay more for a better, cleaner PC, even though they may know those things exist, or they may not even realize those things exist, I should say. Signature is something that Microsoft goes to PC makers with. They can show them all the data. They're confronted by it. But from the PC maker's perspective, this is a very thin margin business, and the crapware is what puts it over the top for them. It's what allows them to turn a device that is kind of break even or barely ekes out a profit or maybe takes a slight loss and turn it into something that makes money. And it's sort of like the, it's like the crack pipe thing for these guys. They can't get off it. They know it's the wrong thing. They keep saying they're going to do better, but at the end of the day, they just can't say no to it.
Do you need like 55 bubble games from HP on your computer?
Some of the... Yeah, so it's funny because actually HP this year in particular, we've going back to the beginning of the year, talking about the stream low end laptops, and then going through the year and talking about things like the Spectre X360, which is I think I picked last week as my favorite PC of the year. They've done a great job compared to other PC makers. They still ship those things with McAfee. They still ship those things with a couple of other little things that I don't think are a good deal. And if you were to compare even a Spectre X360 from HP.com to one you would get from Microsoft Signature, not night and day, but there is an improvement when you go to Signature. I mean, that's an example of a PC that's actually pretty good. Some of them are horrific. And Lenovo, for all of the stuff that they've done to improve things since Superfish, still, I got a Lenovo Yoga 900, Yoga Pro 900, whatever they're calling the new. It's like the Yoga Pro 3 or whatever.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful machine, but it still comes with this stuff, and you're like, oh boy, like seriously, guys. It's like they just can't stop putting stuff on.
They can't control themselves.
Yeah,
they just have to do it. So on my list, I had something. We've spoken about this a lot, but I totally forgot that. This feels like it was 2 years ago, but Google Glasses got killed this year.
See, I would say that was one of the best things that happened this year.
Yeah, I mean, that was not the worst, but it was one of the best. But that was fascinating because they had announced it, I believe, in January that they were ending the project, but they were going to come up with a replacement. It wasn't over for Google Glasses. It was just, we've done enough testing with this, and now there's going to be a replacement. We have yet to see any kind of replacement for Google Glasses. So this was a fascinating little project that a lot of people bought into towards the end.
I have always hated Google Glass. This falls into a category. I have a thing for the end that's kind of my my Hall of Fame for worst technology. My, the kind of long-term things that really just suck. Like forever suck. And what this falls into is another. Kind of put it in a broader context is technology that is supposed to be about empowering an individual to do something, but what it really does is just annoy everyone around that person, right? And there are simple examples of this. It's like when you're on a train or something, or plane even, and someone on a seat next to you, or some kids or whatever it is, are playing a video on a device through the speakers so that you can hear it and not through headsets. And it's like, guys, what? It's like this complete lack of understanding that there are people around you, that you're in public. I was at an airport one time, and these people were having a very animated FaceTime chat on their phone. A crowd of people back at some house. They're screaming at each other. And it's like, guys, you're out in public. Like, common sense.
It's amazing how we need to teach people how to use technology at this point.
Yeah, but Google Glass is worse because it's gross. You've seen that kind of dating video where he's like taking pictures of the girl, and it's scary and it's terrible. And
is it the invasiveness of that kind of device? Like with a phone, if I have a phone and I'm going even if I'm holding it, like you could kind of figure out that I'm taking a picture. With this thing,
but what if you've met someone for the first time and you're holding the phone, taking pictures of them while they're talking? Like, no, just keep going. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I just want to record
it's
you
creepy.
Right now.
I think, look, a lot of technology can be used for good or evil. I mean, obviously, decryption, was a big topic from this week, whatever. But these things usually are debates. There's good and there's bad. And I think the problem with Google Glass is that it embodied in hardware the worst parts of Google, which are the invasiveness, the creepiness, the weirdness, and it just made it front and center. And it was too far over that line. It was just too far.
I don't know what it was. What was the purpose of it though?
Right,
I understand it was trying to do a lot, right?
Sure.
What was the there was no focus point as far as what this was.
Look, I mean,
wearable tech I could kind of understand. The focus point is that it's on your wrist and it's wearable, but like what? And by the way, I'm still not crazy about the Apple Watch. I still don't understand why anybody would need one. How does it help with the inconvenience of having a phone in your pocket? I understand monitoring, bands and things like that. There's a purpose to it, but what was the focus point?
It's beyond that. Like, in other words, there are times that it's socially unacceptable or just maybe not possible for you to take out a phone or another device or whatever. And obviously, as these things become more seamless, I mean, I think the hope for Google Glass is that it becomes part of that pervasive computing experience you and I have talked about. This notion that you can sit in a plane and the screen lights up and all your stuff's on it, and you're typing on the tray and you're having your own personal experience. And, frankly, that kind of thing is going to require a lot of the things that maybe we today have described as invasive and creepy and weird or whatever, the same technologies or whatever. But I think this, because it's a new thing, because it's not something that disappears. The Google Glasses, you were very clearly wearing this terrible thing.
Yeah.
And then you start talking to it. It's like this awful combination of everything that's wrong with technology. Another thing that falls into that category was that you don't really have these anymore, but there's phones that were sort of like walkie-talkies.
Yeah.
Beep, beep.
Well,
hey,
the
Bob, could you tell me? And then you got to hear both sides of the conversation, plus really loud beeping sounds.
Listen, I bought into that. I had a Nextel.
Awful.
All throughout high school, we all had Nextels. It was in.
It makes me
loved
cringe just thinking about that. It's like
we were all construction
kind of
workers.
Basic cluelessness that people just need to get over, and I just hate that kind of stuff.
I think it's the gimmickiness, and that's kind of the selling point with stuff like that. But I know a lot of people that bought these the Google Glass, and they used it, and they're like, oh, okay. I think we were all still looking for the next iPad, and we didn't get it with Google Glass. That's for sure. But listen, I've always said the future of Google Glass is not the glass. It's, the future of, biometrics and a contact lens that goes in your eye.
Contact lenses or eye inserts or, yes, of course. I mean,
that's the future of something like that. But it's...
Yep. That's what I mean. It's a step. It's not... The Google Glasses were never the future. They were just a step. But they were a very ugly, in-your-face step. And unfortunately, the types of people that were attracted to that kind of thing, especially early on, were exactly those kinds of douches that you don't want to see, microblogging what you're saying, or you're like someone walks up to you and it's like, take a picture, or record this, the jackass, he's talking in public, he thinks this is private, that kind of thing. It's like, it's so gross. It's just terrible.
I mean, I see some creepy stuff done with phones. Just imagine the smaller devices.
But imagine if they can hide it and they don't have to show you they have a phone. That's the inherent.
It's a very
issue.
creepy future, says Muscle Man in our chat room. It's a very creepy
unfortunately,
future.
in the future, you're not going to be able to stop this stuff because you won't see it. It will be embedded in people's bodies.
Yeah. A couple fails on your side. OneDrive had a really bizarre couple months where. Last year they announced all these unlimited stuff and they were opening it up and they weren't going to, it was great. And then they took everything away to the point that they are no longer competitive as far as what they're offering on the free solution, in the free level.
They're still pretty competitive. I think the sad thing is they're certainly competitive on the paid end of it as well.
The paid end, sure.
And when you get, Office 365, obviously it gets pretty great. I think the issues I have with that aspect of OneDrive is that, it wasn't communicated very effectively. It wasn't entirely their fault, but they did a bad job with that. And they just didn't. And I actually, to this day, I don't think still not addressed the needs of the people who legitimately need storage and want to get it from Microsoft because they really like Microsoft solutions and want to integrate it into everything that they do. If you are someone who's getting free OneDrive storage either through just the general free offer or from the camera roll bonus, because maybe you put OneDrive on your smartphone, I think they pretty much address those guys. And that's nice. If you're someone who is paying for storage, either through Office 365 or just additional storage, they actually really haven't addressed that at all. Yeah. And I don't think they're going to. And that's too bad because those guys, those are Microsoft's best customers, potentially. I mean, obviously some people are just throwing up videos or whatever, and that's baloney, and that's not what it's for. But that's too bad. But, OneDrive, has been a disaster all year long. This thing we're talking about now just happened. The bigger problem for OneDrive in many ways is just that the service is so unreliable. So much so that somewhere in mid-year, June or July, I actually started paying for Dropbox Pro, which is $99 a year for a terabyte of storage, because that service is approximately 1,000 times as reliable. The sync speed is astronomically better. It works where I want it to work, which is pretty much on the PC. And I use my most important stuff in Dropbox now, not OneDrive, because OneDrive is so woefully bad. Now, in 2016, maybe they fixed that. I don't know. But for now, at least, they've made life so hard for me from a reliability and performance perspective, and also a functionality perspective. We shouldn't forget that in Windows 10 they got rid of placeholders, which was one of the biggest selling points of OneDrive.
That's why I loved it.
Yeah,
I mean, I have so much stuff in Dropbox that I do not need synced.
Right.
And they were the ones doing it.
OneDrive has been replaced in my life, and that stinks because it was something I could so easily recommend before. On the photo side, I would say that it's tough if you're a Windows guy because you can't really access this on your phone, certainly. But if you're using an iPhone or an Android phone, which is everybody, Google Photos makes OneDrive look pathetic by comparison. Google Photos is so awesome and so nice, and I'm sure it was on my best of list last week. It reminds me of things that happened in the past every single day. Basically every day now I can pick up my phone and I've been seeing pictures of the first snowfall from 8-9 years ago, whatever it was. I've been seeing pictures of my daughter's birthday because it was in late November. It's just awesome.
It works exactly the way that it should be working.
It's everything that OneDrive doesn't do.
Yeah. Isn't it? It's amazing.
Yep. It's unreliable. It's performed slow. The photo stuff is baloney. It's terrible. That makes me sad.
Yeah. I have a question. I have a question for you and the audience. It's actually from Jess, my wife.
Okay.
She wants...
She's like, I'm having a baby.
I'm having a baby.
I was just wondering.
Yeah. She needs to be able to have her students record something and give it to her. Allow her to see what they recorded or share the file with her. It's going to be about 30 minutes each recording.
30 minutes. Wow.
Yeah. So what is the best way for them to get these files to her?
Oh.
Remember.
So the best way, so we don't have to worry about how they're making them?
They're probably shooting it on their phone or iPad or who knows how.
Any of these devices can save actually to OneDrive or Dropbox or whatever, and all of them have a share function that basically what you're sending to your wife is a URL. And then she can view it in a web browser.
So pretty much they should just decide whatever way they want to do it.
Yeah.
But there is no one solution for this, right?
Well, what do you mean? I mean, I think the better way to say it is there are many ways to do it. It's not that there's no one solution.
But they have to create a Dropbox account. They need to create a, you know what?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I see what you're saying. Yes, they will need to, yes. If they're going to, right. Because otherwise, what are you going to do? Have them physically bring it in on a USB stick and hand it to her and have her copy it to her computer or whatever? Well, it's kind of better for this. I think the way to go is to put this stuff online.
Yeah,
just share it with her. It will be safe, because these are kids, right? These are children.
No. These are this is college level.
Oh, so whatever. But it will still be safe. So from a privacy perspective, the fact that it's in Dropbox or OneDrive, or I suppose iCloud does this, I'm not sure, but doesn't matter because they're sharing a URL with a single person. It's just for them. Your wife doesn't have to have an account on those services. She can just go and view it.
So what I had suggested initially, and then I realized this may not work, is have them upload it to YouTube, make it an unlisted video, and then provide her with that YouTube link. But the problem there is YouTube still has that 15-minute limit that they need to figure out how to get rid of.
You know what the other problem with YouTube is, depending on what they're doing, they also, because they get attacked so much by the content providers, content makers, if there's any, if someone puts a little song in it or, with this content that they know comes from somewhere else, that even though it's for a school project, they won't allow it on YouTube.
Maybe Google Drive would be the best option. Have them upload it to Google Drive.
Well, I would be very careful about saying the best option. I actually think that any of the online, they all work the same way. If they already have an account anywhere, they can put it wherever they want or wherever they want to use it. The thing that's important is that in each case they can share a URL with your wife, and your wife does not have to have accounts everywhere.
Yeah,
it will be just for her.
Yeah, so just have them. I guess if you have an iPhone, it's going to go to iCloud.
You've
completely and have them share
usurped the worst of 2015 to talk about your wife. Now,
I know. I know. Well, you know what? She's been asking me this question for about 3 months, and I haven't gotten her answer. So it is the worst.
All right.
Windows updates is on my list, and a little bit of a disaster with and how pushy Windows 10 is.
Yeah. So this is one I've thought about this one a lot, obviously, because Windows, ultimately, I feel that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few in this case, and that requiring people to install updates in Windows is, in effect, treating it like any mobile OS is, in reality, the right thing to do. But that's sort of a theoretical statement, because the reality is Microsoft also has a bad habit of shipping really unreliable updates that blue screen computers stop them from rebooting, that cause other problems. Yeah. If you're going to require users to automatically install updates as they come in, you need to ensure that you have the best possible policy in place to ensure that those updates are of the highest quality imaginable, and they're not. And so I didn't add it to my list because I really feel like this idea is sound, but I think the way they've done it, unfortunately, is bad.
I get the concept. I get the concept that getting people to move over is the best thing for everybody. That's great in a perfect world. But I'll give you a great example. I still on this machine cannot go to Windows 10 because there is a driver issue with one of the things that I use.
Yeah.
I know that there's a driver issue. Windows does not think there's a driver issue. I looked at Windows updates and said, I had a Windows update thing come up, and I looked at it and it says Windows 10 ready to click the install button, ready to install. I had to go to other updates, uncheck Windows 10, and then check the other Windows 7 updates in order to do my updates. 90% of people would not have done that, and they would have clicked in. It would have been on Windows 10. My point is, it's a little pushy. I get why it's pushy. I had a machine. It did it on a machine, and the machine cannot install Windows 10 for me. It keeps having to roll back.
You're talking about we're talking about two different things though. You're talking about pushy on a non-Windows 10 computer.
On a non-Windows 10 computer. Yeah.
Okay. I guess I was thinking more along the line of Windows 10 requiring automatic updates, which is.
I'm okay with that.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. No. I'm totally okay with that.
Yeah.
Once you're on the platform, once you're on Windows 10, I get it.
Okay. Gotcha.
This is for non-Windows 10 people.
Gotcha. I'm sorry.
It's okay, Paul. I think they're a little pushy. And
I think they're more than a little pushy, actually. You're being kind.
And by the way, my opinion has totally changed. A couple months ago, I probably would have said, you know what, I think it's great for everybody to jump over and go over there. But I've seen two machines. Yeah. One, I cannot do an update. The other one, it gave me that update. It auto-updated for me. And it put me in an endless loop because it couldn't install Windows. So it would have to revert back to Windows 7.
It's really not okay to require this of people. Some number of years ago, you bought a computer that came with some version of Windows. You bought that thing. It's yours. You do with it as you will. Now, aside from the fact that, Windows 7 maybe or Windows 8 or whatever, at some point in the future will be non-supported. I mean, that's another issue we'll have to face down the road. Microsoft will ship subsequent versions of Windows, and you can decide as they come and go which, if any, you want to install. You should be able to, with these Windows 10 things, say, I don't want this. I'm never going to want it. I'm going to own this computer for a couple more years, and then I'm going to move on. And maybe I buy a new computer. We'll see what happens after that. But it's unreasonable to expect people who had made buying decisions years ago to be impacted by Microsoft's corporate decision this year to require updates on a new OS and to really push that OS very strongly, aggressively on these people. It's weird, So I agree with that. I think the way they're pushing Windows 10 on Windows 7, Windows 8 users is very strange. It's actually very un-Microsoft.
It is very un-Microsoft. I think
yeah.
It's very tricky. It's like we're gonna trick you to update this, and then now you're gonna be stuck with it.
You sort of can't believe it. Like they're really doing this.
Yeah. It's like going out to dinner with someone. They're like, "Oh, you've never had sushi before?" No, I hate sushi. I don't want sushi. No, have it. Try it. You'll love it if you try it. And you just take the sushi, you shove it in their mouth.
I'm allergic to fish.
Yeah, and then you say I'm allergic to fish.
Eat a piece, you wimp.
That was on my list. What else do you have, Paul, on yours?
What else do I have? So to move it away from Microsoft briefly, there's a lot of things about Apple one can complain about, but I think the really kind of shifty, underhanded thing that they've done this year is their base devices all ship with 16 gigs of storage, which is not enough for anything.
No, nothing.
But they don't go to 32 to 64 to 128. The second one up is 64. And then the next one's 128. They charge you a lot of money to make those upgrades, even though it doesn't cost them almost anything to deliver that.
I'm willing to bet that most people are not buying the 64 gig and they're buying a 16 gig.
Well, actually, so I'm not sure about that. But here's the thing. They should be shipping the 32 for the price of the 16. They're gouging. And it's unfair. They're giving, for a company that cares so much about user experience, that cares so much about delighting users and all that kind of baloney they always talk about. Shipping devices with not enough storage and no opportunity to increase that storage at all is inexcusable. The base devices that Apple sells in 2015 and beyond should come with 32 gigs of storage, period. There is no justification for this. This company has such incredible margins that the $2 it would cost per device for them, maybe $1, I don't know what it is. Multiply that by the number of millions of iOS devices they ship in 2015, and that's how much of a profit hit they would have to take. It's nothing. It's inexcusable. I can't believe that they do this. It's a shame. It's just too bad.
I'm going to tell you something. My wife always had the 16 gig. And okay. I have a 16 gig iPad, which is totally unusable at this point. I mean, really, the struggle for me to install anything and to keep anything on here.
I got you don't have enough storage in a little dialogue the other day on my iPad.
I think this kind of bit Apple, on the ass a little bit with that last update that they did where nobody could update. Because they had no storage on their iPhones.
Sure.
Nobody has storage. I don't know one person.
Well, they really learned their lesson then because they shipped new iPhones with what?
16 gigs.
Same exact baloney, nothing amount of storage. And then they offered 64 in the upgrade instead of 32. It's like, make 32 the base. I'm willing to bet that most people are buying a 16 gig. They're just going and buying the base, iPhone 6S. Well, actually, so here's the deal. We'll never know, but Apple does say what the average selling price of iPhone is, and if you look at that price, it will give you a rough understanding that there's a mix because the average selling price is not very close to the minimum price of an iPhone. It's in the middle somewhere.
And now they have a regular iPhone and like a bigger iPhone, so that screws everything up too.
A regular iPhone and a bigger iPhone.
They have a Plus.
Yeah, but they still have the same amount of storage.
Yeah, they have the same amount of storage, but different pricing. So if you were to average in the price...
I'm sorry. I see what you're saying. Right.
You know what I mean?
And actually further skewing this is they have the lower-end devices, which factor into this as well, the old models that will have even less storage or whatever. Anyway, you know what? I don't care what people are buying, except that I don't want people to buy a 16-gig iPhone. I think it's terrible. In fact, my own daughter, when she just had her birthday recently, upgraded to an iPhone 6S or whatever. And the one thing I told my wife when they went to the store, do not let her get the cheap version. I don't care what color she gets, but she has to get at least 64 gigs of storage. 16 is not enough.
I don't understand for who, I'm thinking about my friends right now, and I'm thinking about who has a 64 gig iPhone. My wife has it because I bought it for her.
I do. My child does.
My brother has one. Because he had a 16 gig and he wanted to just bash his head against the wall. And this is not a guy that takes a whole lot of photos and has a whole lot of apps. He had music and that was it. He had to constantly delete stuff. Beyond that, every other person in the family has a 16 gig iPhone. Every single person. And every single person runs out of storage and they constantly tell me the same thing. I have to constantly delete stuff.
So this falls into the thing we were talking about earlier, where people who are not, in this case, educated, or, by the way, perhaps don't have enough money to afford a more expensive iPhone, are disadvantaged by this kind of policy.
Yeah.
In other words, arbitrarily, basically, they are having a less good experience. They want that iPhone. They can only afford the cheap one, probably on some kind of a 2-year schedule here in the U.S. or whatever. They do what they got to do to afford it. There's no way I could go, another $100. Can't do it. And now they have that experience. And that's terrible. This is what I mean. It's not fair to do this to people, And in Apple's case, you could do very simple math to understand how much it would impact them. And you look at the amount of profits that company makes in a year. And what you realize is they could give everyone a much better experience.
And that's what, isn't that the Apple? Well, wait a minute. Isn't that the Apple thing? Isn't that why Apple's so much better than everybody else? The user experience. Everybody has such a good user experience here.
That is my point.
Yeah. Yep. You're not getting that user experience.
It's not hypocritical. It's worse than hypocritical. Yeah. It's just terrible. It's terrible.
Paul, some photos, I was looking at the how big a file.
God forbid you turn on live photos too. I know exactly. Yeah.
But some photos are 8 megs. Like a standard photo is 8 megs. I get it. It goes to the cloud, and then you could format it and it doesn't download it, and you could still access. I get all that. That's fine. But when you have all your photos on there, because most people are not doing a wipe of their phone, and you can't do your iPhone update, your iOS update, and you got to constantly delete apps, the experience really gets crippled. And you start thinking twice. Now, I don't think these people are going to go and buy a Windows phone or even an Android phone.
Oh, no. In fact, they're too busy giving Apple high marks on Consumer Reports because it's such a high-quality company and they have such a great experience. And that's what those people do. And that makes me crazy. I really feel like people need to stand up for themselves. And that's not related to bad tech. I'm going to tell you
a little story. A little Apple story here. And oh, God, I feel so bad saying this. And my mother-in-law is going to be so mad at me for telling this, but... So she has an iPhone, and she's terrified that she's going to drop this thing and break it. Brand new 5S, 6S Plus, brand new.
Sure.
16. No, I'm sorry, it's a 6S because she has a 16 gig. Brand new.
Why is she worried about dropping it and breaking it?
I don't know. I don't know. She's just terrified. She has the OtterBox, whatever that thing is.
Yeah, the thing that makes it look like a brick.
Yeah, I mean, it takes this beautiful, elegant phone, and
my children both have this.
Just makes this thing look. It looks like it comes out of like a Soviet, like a post-war some sort of device. Like this is what the phone looks like to me,
Right. This is the East German knockoff.
An East German knockoff of an iPhone. So she's now, she's showing all these pictures. Like she took pictures of the baby shower, and every one of these pictures came out hideous. And she's like, I don't understand this iPhone. The camera sucks on this thing. It's horrible. I mean, like she's like, it's the worst I've ever seen. I don't like the new iPhone. I want to go back to my old iPhone. And I look at this thing and I look at the case. Yeah, you know why? Because you're taking this beautiful thing and you're covering it with this piece of plastic now, and it's taking the worst photos ever. I'm like, just get rid of the case. And she's like, no, I don't want to break the phone. I'm like, get insurance. Why you have this beautiful phone and now you're ruining it? I'm like, I've had this phone. You know what happened? I dropped it. Right. Look at you see the side is cracked? There you go. So I go and I spend another $4 on a plastic case and I just do it. I have a cover. I have a plastic cover. And people are walking around with this thing. They're taking horrible, horrible photos because the thing is entirely covered in this protective case, in this bubble. So now not only are we running out of space
or something.
Yeah, people are like literally covering their phone up with like cellophane and plastic, and it's the most insane thing ever. Guys, if you drop, I get it. Put a nice little glass cover on here. Put the plastic cover on the back. And if you drop it, if you're that concerned about dropping your phone, you can get insurance. You're not working on a construction site that you're going to drop this thing constantly. You're not.
And by the way, if you do, I will say one of the things that Apple did this year that's frankly good for people is they made it a lot less expensive to get your screen replaced. So in the old, not in the old days, like as recently as a year ago, everyone who had an iPhone, you see them on trains, planes, whatever, they were always like broken screens. It's because when you took it into the Apple store, it cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I think these days it's about $100.
She's walking around with this thing like this. She's like, hey, I want to take a picture. Hold on. Yeah, hello? I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I swear to you, it seems like I'm exaggerating. This thing is like about this size.
Right.
It's the most insane thing ever.
I know, it's not good.
I know. Eileen, I'm sorry. I just have to say that. It's this ridiculous case on your phone. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take it at Christmas. I'm going to take the phone out of the case, and I'm just going to throw the case away.
Right.
And I'm not going to tell her. I just threw it out, and I'm not giving it back to you. Goodbye, and I'm just going to leave after I get all my presents. How mad could you stay at someone on Christmas? And the following days are birthdays, so I did something positive for her. Change your life in one day. You know what I have on my list? And people are going to get so mad. We kind of mentioned it before. but the Apple Watch. And we kind of went into this last week.
No, why though? Like, I mean, to me, like the Apple Watch is useless, but not useless, but it's like why? What's wrong with why is it so bad that it deserves to be on the worst list?
I think it's stupid. I really think the Apple Watch is stupid. I think it's dumb. I think it's pointless at this point. It's ugly. It's not pretty.
It's ugly.
Everything.
It's not pretty. I think it's pretty.
You think so?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's hideous. I don't want it. I don't know. I don't like it at all. And I don't get the purpose of it at this moment. I'm sure it's gonna shoot laser beams eventually from it, and it's gonna be this amazing thing. But right now, I don't like it. I think it's ugly. It's not. I just don't like it. And here comes the YouTube comments saying, "Andrew, you're a moron. I use my watch all the time." It's gonna come in. This is the point that you write. Andrew's a moron on YouTube.
I don't know. I mean, most wearables, or no, I shouldn't say it that way. Many wearables, some wearables, they're not necessities, right? I think with the phone, especially now, it's not 2007 anymore. You can see how things have evolved, and a smartphone is kind of a necessity these days. A tablet is not, a computer can be, depending on what you're doing in life. And a wearable is not. It's not a necessity. It's still a luxury item. You mentioned earlier the notion of like fitness trackers, and I think we can all agree those things are, they're fine. And for the people that want that kind of behavior, that's great. But a smart watch, the notion that you have these apps and they're interacting with apps on your phone. I mean, it's a nicety. It's not a necessity, right?
I don't know. And I get accused of not being like techie enough when I say these things.
The Apple Watch is not for techies. It's for image conscious.
Who's buying it?
Well-heeled people that love Apple logos and everything they own,
Yeah, but who's buying this thing? Like I don't see anybody walking around with this stupid thing on their wrist.
I see them from time to time. I mean, I see Fitbits out in the world.
Oh, I see a lot of Fitbits. I see a lot of bands, like things like that. The Jawbones. I see a lot of those.
I do see Apple Watches. I mean, I think it's fair to say that maybe not from a unit sold perspective, but certainly from a revenue perspective because of the price. I mean, Apple Watches are astronomically expensive. They're probably already the best, the biggest money maker for wearables, I would imagine. I think the issue is that they're not a necessity. But
none of this is, like a smartphone now is a necessity because of what world that we're living in. An iPad, it's not a necessity, but it's still a highly functioning device that you could replace something with. There's nothing that this thing is replacing other than a real watch and like an actual piece of jewelry. Watch.
No one wears watches.
I do. I mean, I do.
I don't mean literally.
I do think everything you say is literal, Paul. Today, I'm taking everything.
Everyone does. I know. Believe me.
But you know what I mean? Like, it's not even attractive. I don't know one real person, and I'm sorry when I say that. Like, someone out of the tech industry, that has one of these.
I don't. I actually don't think. I think the majority. Of course, I tend to run people who are in the tech industry, but I think the majority of Apple Watch users are just people. They've succumbed to the Apple thing. They've had good experiences, or they think they have, and God, they love standing in the Apple Store waiting for support for their iPhone with a cracked screen or whatever it is. But they want, while standing there, they're like, I'll make an impulse buy, and instead of buying the bag of chocolates you would get at Whole Foods, they bought an Apple Watch. I mean, I think there are people who are really into this stuff, and look, it's a generality. I don't mean to call people lemmings, and I know people get crazy when I talk like this, but I really do think Apple has latched onto a wonderfully compliant user base with lots of money, and man, they are happier than ever to spend as much money as they can on Apple stuff.
I'm going to say this, and I'm going to get a lot of heat for it, as they say in the pro wrestling business, but I think the Apple Watch is the most un-Apple-like product that they've put out in the last 5 years.
So actually, I would say from a hardware perspective, that's not true. The hardware is very Apple, but
overall, though, I'm saying overall experience.
Yeah, no, from a software experience, certainly for the act of using the watch, it's so terrible. And of the major smartwatch platforms, it's the worst one by far. It's a terrible interface.
Yeah.
Like anything else in life, you get used to it. And if you just bought an Apple Watch and you use your Apple Watch, you're listening to this and you're thinking, Paul, I use this every day. It's fine. Well, of course you do. You use it every day. I've used all the watches. So I'm sorry if my experience is a little broader, but when I think about Android Wear devices, of which I own several, or the Microsoft Band, which is the one that I choose, I find those interfaces to be simpler and much easier to use. Sorry. I that's my perspective. You can disagree. It's fine. But I guess when I wouldn't say that the Apple Watch is like one of the worst things from the year, but it's so unnecessary. I would almost rather just ignore it.
See, I'm not and I'm not against the smartwatch concept. Like there are some really pretty ones that Motorola put out. I really thought the Motos were not bad looking. The round face one. I was like, oh, I didn't buy one, but I was like, oh, I get it. Like this looks like a watch. I saw someone with it. It's a beautiful display on it. It's attractive. It's an attractive piece of jewelry on your wrist. I cannot say the same for the Apple Watch. My buddy Josh got one. I was busting his chops for like 2 days, asking him, just how it was just I was just making fun of him because it looks silly to me.
Jeez. That's harsh, man. I don't know. I think the Apple Watch is an elegant device. It's very nice looking. And as a fashion accessory, which frankly they're kind of shooting for, I think it's successful in that sense. From a technological perspective, the Apple Watch is a joke. It's terrible, especially the first version where you couldn't run apps directly on the device itself. And of course, now
it's only going to get better.
Apps,
maybe the next generation is.
Of course, everything gets better. I mean, that's like
because then it's going to be like next
time
year.
Will pass. But I mean, the problem is going to be the original device will be so limited that even now, when you can run apps on the device, people are probably already noticing it's not going to be, it's not going to be as, as solid, and there's not enough space and there's not enough processing power to do the stuff that they want to do. And that's going to be especially true as they move forward and have new hardware revisions. The first version of anything is going to be like that. And so the first version of this device was built with the notion that you're not running apps on it. You're running them on the phone. And now that's changed. And so that's going to be the way things are going forward. That device is not optimized for that. And it's not going to be very good when version 2 comes out or version 3 or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't hate it. I mean, I sound like I do, but I don't.
I don't hate it either. It's just, that's how I feel right now.
I don't think it sucks. I just think it's unnecessary.
You have on your list, and then we're running out of some time here, but you have the terrible Surface clones.
Yeah.
That we saw
this falls
happen.
into what we were just. Yeah. In other words, Microsoft for the past 3 years has been kind of pioneering this notion of a 2-in-1 computer. Apple got a lot of credit for reinventing the tablet. Everyone thinks they invented it, but like coming up with a tablet that makes sense. So they approach the tablet from the device perspective, not from the PC perspective. But Microsoft, I don't think gets enough credit for inventing essentially the 2-in-1. The tablet that can be your PC. And obviously the first version of Surface RT, had many issues, which we don't need to get into here. But starting, I would say, with Surface Pro 3 especially, Surface 3, now Surface Pro 4, the Surface has turned into something awesome, where people really see the utility of it and they love it. And they're selling very well. So well that Apple and Google are both making one now, except they call them something different. Google makes something called a Pixel C, which it just started selling, which is one of the most epically pointless devices in history, from what I can tell, except for maybe Google Glass. And then Apple's making the iPad Pro, which is also in its own way laughably bad. With this terrible keyboard, with the pencil thing you got to plug into the device like it's to charge it. Like it's just this crazy, terrible thing.
Who is the iPad Pro? Who is it for?
It's for Apple fans who said to Apple, "I want you to make one of those things," because Apple fans, the really big ones, are really taken up by the whole, uniqueness and innovativeness or whatever they perceive in Apple, and they see these ads for Surface and they're like, "Huh, that's actually useful."
I mean,
that's cool.
It's a 13-inch iPad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
So I look, like Apple Watch. I think Apple's going to get the iPad Pro right over time.
absolutely,
Absolutely,
yeah,
no. And we've talked
yeah.
about this notion that Apple will push the iPad functionality up toward the Mac, and they'll simplify the Mac down toward the iPad, and we'll get this thing in the middle. And the iPad Pro is probably that thing. It eventually V3 or something. The first version is terrible. The Google Pixel C is pointless, except for one thing. What they both prove collectively is that Microsoft was right about the 2-in-1.
That this
the
may be the
Surface is a
future, yeah.
success. Yeah.
Yeah, this may be the future of these devices.
It troubles me. It makes me somewhat happy that you can't, with any credibility, write a review of either one of these products without mentioning Surface. You can't. You have to mention it. If you're an Apple-loving blogger and this is your whole life, you have to mention Surface. There's no way you can get around not mentioning it. Now, you will decide, of course, that Apple has done it again and that the iPad Pro is better than Surface. I don't think that's the case. It doesn't really matter. But I think that's kind of neat for Microsoft. They really did create a product category there. And
no, they did, yeah. And that was kind of the goal with the Surface, right? That the PC makers would follow.
Yeah.
And it was like a reference point saying, like, listen, guys, Windows 8. This is what we kind of envision for this operating system.
And actually, on that note, I should also mention that there are Surface clones in the PC space as well.
A ton,
and we're talking like unabashed Surface clones. There's an HP X2,
the Lenovo,
which is actually it improves on the Surface design in some key ways, which I think is kind of interesting, especially on the keyboard. Beautiful. And then Lenovo has a Mix. I think it's called the Mix 7. I don't want to get the name wrong, but it's a Mix like MIIX. Also improves on the Surface.
Which one's the one with the crazy hinge, like the gold hinge? Which one was that one? Was that Dell?
No, okay. So the Lenovo has a watch band hinge like the Yoga.
Yeah, that's the one.
Which might be what you're thinking of. The HP has a beautiful silver hinge. Kickstand, I should say, not a hinge.
I'm trying to find the one with it was like a gold hinge.
Mix. Look up Lenovo MIIX.
Yeah, I see it here. Yeah. Listen, this is great, right? Because this is what Microsoft wanted for their PCs. I don't know if it works. Do I want to go buy?
There's little trade-offs, right? I mean, some of these things are Core M based, and you can kind of make your I think the HP in particular sits very neatly between a Surface 3 and a Surface Pro. And you could, if you want something a little more powerful and can spend a little bit more, it's kind of sitting there in the middle, and that's kind of neat for them. Each of them in its own way improves on Surface in some capacity, so that's kind of cool. But all these devices and anything else, I'm sure there are others that I've forgotten to mention, really just prove the same thing. Microsoft created a product category, so it's kind of cool. I just think it stinks like how, the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, they approach the Pixel C and the Apple iPad Pro as if these things were immediately contenders. Like, just because these companies that are not Microsoft made them, now we must discuss them as if they are equals. And it's like, no, these things only exist because Microsoft proved that this product category makes sense. And to call them anything other than followers is disingenuous.
Yeah, listen, this is a positive. I see it as a positive that the industry is following them. Some people may see it as a negative.
Right, it is a positive. The negative is that it often is not reported that way.
Yeah, no, this is a total positive that there is a new category and Microsoft got their way.
But there are kids in their parents' basements who think Apple has done it again. And it's like, Apple didn't do it. This didn't come from Apple, guy. And it's a little frustrating.
What's not on my list, but I was in the middle for this one, and it was the new Mac, the MacBook.
Yeah.
I don't know where I sit with this device, because it is stunningly beautiful.
Yep, and absolutely worthless.
And but it's the same story that was of the iPad Air.
It's the same story as the
MacBook Air. The MacBook Air.
No. No, the MacBook Air was useful. Is still useful.
Well, no. The first generation one, it was so slow.
Oh no, that was terrible.
Yeah.
No. I think with that device, you could kind of see where it was going. It was not a horrible idea. I think it was harmed by the CPU that was in it at the time and all that kind of stuff. The MacBook is just, the MacBook shouldn't exist. Like, that should be the MacBook Air. It should have multiple USB-C ports and, oh, by the way, a normal USB port, because it's 2015 and we need those things. It's a science experiment.
Yeah.
It has the worst keyboard, a terrible trackpad, and it has one USB-C port. What? And so for me, it's not that it sucks. I wouldn't put it on the worst list, but I would ignore it because it deserves to be ignored. It's nothing. It's just stupid. And years down the road, when elements of this thing are combined, I don't think that we're going to have MacBooks and MacBook Airs. I think these things serve the same audience. I don't understand the differentiation.
So I stand a little bit differently. As far as functionality, this thing, I used one and it is not very good.
That's what I just said.
Yeah. No. I agree with you on that.
It's terrible.
It's functionality wise, it's terrible. Design wise, stunningly beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful, but that's a Barbie doll.
Listen, sometimes you want to play with a Barbie.
Okay.
And sometimes you want to play with, a tank. This is the Barbie, and the Pro is a tank. I think that I didn't put it on my worst stuff because I see the vision in this, and probably the next generation one will be way better, and they're going to fix a lot of these flaws. The things that make Apple laptops really good is the fact that they got a good keyboard and they got a good trackpad, and their overall design. This thing is missing both the trackpad and the keyboard. It's not very good.
Yeah.
So, I'm curious to see what they do with the next generation one, and to see if this just becomes the Air, or the Air becomes the Pro. Eventually, that's what's going to happen. I don't know. I just wanted to bring that up before we wrapped it up. When we wrap it up, we're going to wrap it up. We had some other stuff on the list. Did you want to touch on that? Or what?
Yeah, not really. I mean, most of my harping is on the same kind of topics. I mentioned the Surface.
Your Hall of Fame. The worst Hall of Fame.
We should get to that.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Obviously, the selfie stick makes it into the worst of forever Hall of Fame. Selfie sticks are exactly what's wrong with the world. It's people walking around clueless and not caring about anyone around them. They're hurting other people. They're walking into works of art. It's just they're taking pictures of themselves when they're in places that are interesting. And I've got a newsflash for you, everybody, and this includes me. You're not interesting. Look, this blows my mind that people look. If you want to hold your phone out and take a quick picture and move on, that's great. But you have to. You see those people. They walk around with it. They're making a video of them walking down a street. Like you're in Paris, you're in New York, you're in the Grand Canyon, and instead of this vista view that's all around you, this amazing slice of our planet,
it's you.
You're videotaping you.
Yeah.
Videotaping because I'm old. You're making a recording of yourself. No. And it's sad.
Listen, I like to stare at myself just like the next guy, but I don't have a selfie stick, nor do I,
It's everything that's wrong.
I know it's humongous. I know it's huge in Europe, and I did not know what a impact it had here in New York until over the summer I was walking around, and literally every tourist had a selfie stick, and they're walking like this with the selfie stick. Yep. Literally a broomstick. They're walking around the city. Yeah.
Oh, no. As far as I'm concerned, when you walk by a person like that, they have given you their permission
to
rip that thing out of their hands and beat that phone into the ground.
You don't deserve this.
God help anyone who hits me with one of those.
You know what would happen if I took that out of the bar?
That's a weapon.
If we went to the bar, if we went to Rattle and Hum,
I would
your hair
destroy
looks
a
beautiful,
phone.
Jess.
I would destroy it.
Jessica got a haircut and it looks really pretty.
Your wife has interrupted this podcast too many times today.
Too many times with her questions and haircuts. If I went to a bar and I had a selfie stick,
yep.
the looks I would get.
Oh, listen, you should be beaten for that. That's
you heard it here, folks.
No, it's like that scene in Office Space. Guy goes back to his apartment and he asks his next door neighbors, "Let me ask you a question. Does anyone at, the guy works at like a construction site. He's like, does anyone at your workplace ever use the phrase, it looks like someone's come down with a case of the Mondays? Yeah. And that guy's response to that question is exactly this. It's exactly this. It's like, no, I think you could get beaten for that. Basically. Yes. That's exactly. You just don't do this.
Just ridiculous. I hate that. And, but I'm all for using your Surface Pro 4 to, shoot video with. I'm all for that. I'm all for that.
Or using an iPad to to make a video or take a photo.
Yeah. I'm all
I will
for that
say
too.
this for like I have a kind of a pet peeve about the iPad photo thing, but the one thing I will say to that is obviously the cameras in iPads have improved over the years, just as they have in iPhones. And if you're an older person, in particular, someone with poor vision,
It kind of
having
works.
the extra screen like that is probably pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And I think that that's cool. But the problem with it is this thing that we've come back to again and again. It's the technology that is used in ways that makes life worse for other people. And so when you're standing in front of the Mona Lisa, if you're sitting in a crowd because your kid's up on stage at a school assembly or whatever it is, and someone in front of you is holding up a giant iPad, and you know they're going to be doing this with iPad Pros soon. That is clueless to do to other people.
I want to roundhouse kick them.
Yeah, just do like a karate kick.
Yeah.
And like cut it in half like a board.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then hand it back to him and then bow,
Yeah.
Sure.
Phenomenal.
No, I mean, I just, it really just comes down to common sense and basic human decency. People that use technology selfishly, they need to be stopped, Andrew. That's what I'm trying to say.
Listen, I think it's just, I think eventually we're all just going to learn that we're just being really rude people.
We need a dark crusader.
I actually do not like. I'm not a fan. Maybe you know what? We should talk about this on the post show, guys. We're gonna wrap this up, but we're recording our post show. If you guys want to watch it, you go to patreon.com/whatthetech and watch it there. Or if you're watching live, guess what? We're gonna be on right now. But we are running out of time. I want to talk about that, about how we are not in like 20 years. We're gonna look back and say, "Oh my God, we were so rude." It's like belching in public,
Yeah.
Like the stuff that we're doing now with our mobile devices, it's just.
Oh, but Steve Martin joked about this 30 years ago. Someone sits down next to him and says, do you mind if I smoke? And he says, no. Do you mind if I fart?
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. It's the same issue. It's just applied to technology.
Yeah. Good topic. Paul, Merry Christmas.
You too.
What are you doing? You doing the whole family coming over thing?
Yeah, so we're staying home this year. We're not going anywhere.
Dressing up like Santa?
No. No, my wife's parents are here from out of state, and so they'll be here on Christmas Eve and Christmas morning. And we're going to do like the Thanksgiving style deal.
Yeah, excellent.
Where we, turkey and all that stuff.
We do a very big sit-down dinner, very formal dinner at Just's aunt's house for Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only time our family's formal, ever.
Yeah.
Like, we're just a bunch of degenerates, but that is the only time that we all get really dressed up, and everybody's very proper, and we do dinner. And after dinner, everybody just becomes a belligerent drunk. And then the fight starts and the gift opening happens. It's the greatest thing in the world, how we go from this elegant, really, really nice, clean-cut family to being a bunch of degenerate drunks really quickly. And it's like a 7-course meal. It's, the prime rib, and it's like the whole thing. And then the second that last dish comes out, the people are undoing their pants, the ties are off, and we're all, having a battle royal somewhere. It's the greatest thing in the world to witness. Nice. Guys, go to our website, gfqnetwork.com. You can subscribe to us. We are everywhere podcasts are available, except for Windows Phone. No, I think, you know what? I think from all my complaining,
no.
We're on Windows Phone. I think the problem is kind of being solved. I don't know how.
Well, by the way, you could also use Pocket Casts.
You could also use Pocket Casts.
Recommend. You have to pay for it, but it's a much better podcast app, and it works across the platform.
Yeah, so download us. We have an SD version, an HD version, an audio version. We're everywhere podcasts are available. You can follow me at Andrew
There's an
Zarian.
anime version.
There's an anime version. I'm already an anime. I mean,
it's like a Speed Racer version where there's all these action lines behind us.
Paul, I'm a 32-year-old man that's growing a man bun out. I'm trying to look like a cartoon at this point. My life goal is to look even more ridiculous than I already do. Guys, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.